we were just talking about how you use your conscious mind to make the change, which I thought was really interesting because a lot of people, I think, really struggle with that idea of actually being able to stop something themselves because they feel powerless.
Yeah, and what happens if that is your belief system that you are powerless to change the meaning, you don't know what you don't know. And sadly, is too many therapists are, I'm going to say it, misleading people to saying, no, you just have to suffer with this and you just got to learn to deal with it. I'm sorry, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Because you alone, here comes the event. You see it, you give it a meaning. Only you can choose to give it that meaning. So if everything was true every single time, that means every single time it happens, you'd have to feel the exact same way. Now, if I come up and poke you in the shoulder and you're like, Ray, really, that's annoying. Stop. But if I keep doing it, you're going to like, okay, stop it. I'm going to slap you.
Yeah.
So now what happens if I do that when you're like really in a bad mood, nothing's going well, and I come up with that? You're not going to tolerate it as long as you did when you're happy.
Yeah.
So that means you alone made a choice as to how much are you going to tolerate and the meaning you gave to it each and every time. So it's like you're out and about and you have your own business and you just signed a $100,000 contract. It's like, woo-hoo, man, I am flying high. You're driving down the road and here comes this idiot just barreling down the highway, cuts in front of you, and you see it coming and you're like, you know what? Yeah, he's in a hurry, man. Don't worry about it. I'm going to let it go. Then what happens if switch the scenario? You lose the $100,000 contract. Here comes this guy barreling up beside you. You know what he's going to do. He's going to try and cut in front of you, and it's going to make for a dangerous scenario. And you're like, oh, no, you don't. And you throttle it up. You cut him off. You don't let him in.
Yep.
He was doing the exact same thing. But in two different scenarios, you reacted differently, seeing what was happening based 100% on your emotions. You alone made a choice. So if you couldn't change the meaning, that means you couldn't have changed the meaning there. Every time you would have had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, what I had to do with my trauma is I had to go back and change the meaning. So every fruit has a root. I am allowed to go back there and give that fruit a new meaning. It's called, some people call it cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah. And I was talking to my daughter, who's a nurse, about narcissistic personality. And I said, well, how did they help them? She goes, well, cognitive behavioral therapy. I said, well, how long does that take? She goes, oh, it takes years. Yeah. I'm like, really? Really? When you go in and change the meaning of something, do you have to change it one notch at a time? Just little by little, or can you go in there and find the root cause and very quickly say, oh my goodness. And I'm just going to be honest, that's what I do. Yeah. We have major breakthroughs in less than a few hours on the most part.
Well, it's funny that you say breakthrough because it's like it feels very similar to I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Demartini, and he has this breakthrough experience book that I read years ago, and he does a whole seminar about that. But it's a similar sort of thing of really finding those things in your life that other people that you're blaming and that sort of thing. So it's really interesting.
100%. That's all it is. It's the simple step. It's the hard process. I personally spent 50 years, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, trying to hide that pain. Yeah. Over the last 7 years, particularly the last 6, because after I broke free from that, it took me about a year to catch my equilibrium, to really get my balance.
Right.
And then I went on this unreal accelerated growth track. And so don't blame if you're really working hard to improve your life, never put yourself down for the process you're going through. It is a process. It really is a process. It's not something like, oh, I give it a new meaning, I'm a new person. No, it really is, working it. It's you're going to the gym and you're bench pressing 100 pounds or kilos, and you want to get to 150. You don't walk in one day and say, okay, today we're doing 150, and you just like boom, boom, boom. No, you got to go from 100 to 105, 110, 115. It's a simple process. Put 5 pounds or 5 kilos more, or, but now to do the work is the process. It's simple what you need to do, but you got to work your way through that. Same things mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, so I want to, like, what you're talking about here is very similar to this next question. So, so I'm just stating the obvious here, but obviously a lot of people, and you've mentioned it already, live there or waste their lives just with addiction and never, even with those addictions, never feeling fulfilled. But you said something to me the other day that I thought was really interesting. And so I'll put that question to you. How can we fill our bucket and stop it leaking? You were using the analogy of the bucket continuing to leak.
So we all have a bucket, and everybody has a hole in their bucket or multiple holes. Sadly, some people have no bottom in their bucket. Whatever you pour in goes right out the bottom. I mean, instantly, there is nothing stopping it. Other people, they receive this into them and it slowly leaks out. And again, that is really all in how do you think about you. Remember, we're trying to break that glass ceiling. We're not raising our floor. Our floor level will fall to the level of what we perceive we are. And what is that hole in your bucket? The earliest wound or hurt that you can get is from your mother and your father. So this is one of the most critical, as a personal transformation coach, this is one of the most critical things we need to identify and bring healing and correction to. Only you can go in and rewrite that meaning. And that's one of the reasons I do what I call a father's blessing. And we have seen massive transformation. And all I'm doing is I'm standing in the place of that father and I'm sharing a blessing to a son and a daughter. And what it does, it literally goes into their emotions and it just simply shifts it. They never heard dad say, I love you, I bless you. And when I say that, it's like, oh, it filled them, or you could say plug the hole in their bucket so that there's not so much emotions draining out the bottom. Now, here's the key. We got one big hole we plugged, but there's a lot of more little holes we need to work at. Again, it's a process. This is not something that, oh, you read the book I read, or I read the book that you were talking about, and I'm completely healed. Now it's a lot of little holes, and some very, very big holes.
So can I just ask? So you're kind of like reframing, like if you're the father's blessing. So you could say like you're reframing how you feel about your father and how they feel about you, and so you feel that warmth of the nurturing of how they should have been. Is it like that?
So what you're really, 100%, you're reframing how do you see you. So it really comes down to how do you see yourself is everything. What is the meaning you give? Like, what is the meaning I gave to my father leaving when I was 4 years old?
Right, okay, gotcha.
When I changed that, in the last 3 years, in the last year, my circle of influence is dramatically increased. Because 6 years ago, I started in this incredible journey. So 7 years ago is when I had my last struggle. It took me about a year to catch my balance. In the last 6, I've been on unreal growth track. Now my circle of influence and the people that I hang out with is dramatically shifting higher and higher and higher quality, higher caliber and higher quality. If you would have told me I would be doing what I'm doing today with the people I'm doing it with 10 years ago, I would have said, no way, absolutely never. But now it is amazing. It all had to start with, how did I see me?